The summer transfer window is upon us, and it has been going strong. And there's been a lot of big signings, a lot of underrated signings, and a lot of the in-between. But today, Barnes and I, my name is Derrik, obviously, Barnes and I, we will cover the 5 best summer transfer window signings so far. It's going to be a fun one, so let's get straight into it. Obviously, we did have to put a couple rules in place. No free transfers because, let's be honest, we could just make a whole starting 11 probably of free transfers. And so I'm like, that's kind of not fair. So no free transfers. And we originally weren't going to do any people who are already on loan at the club, but we did make one exception for that because I think it's such a great piece of business. But yeah, first up, we got to talk about the big one, the big signing, because Mbappe didn't move clubs. It is Erling Haaland going from Borussia Dortmund to Manchester City. 60 million euros, a release clause activated by Man City. Seemed like he was always set to go to Man City because none of the La Liga teams are gonna really were really after him because they were after Madrid was after Mbappe and Barca have no money, so they couldn't go after him. So Man City just seemed like the place for him. I'll let you go, Barnes, on Haaland because we all know he's a great player.
What more can you say? You can literally just leave it at Haaland, and he's legitimately the best striker in the game right now. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he can shoot, he can dribble. Like, you can list more things that he can do than he can't do, and I think that's just what he is. And the thing I used to describe Haaland is he's just a fighter jet. He's just going to swoop in, he's going to make a play, he's going to run past you, boom, and next thing you know, a sick bombing run, he's got a goal or at least a really hard shot on target that forces a save by the keeper.
Yeah, and Haaland's another guy that went to Salzburg, made him really made his name there, really developed there, and then goes to Dortmund, which is another great place for a younger player to go and continue to develop. And he's one of the best strikers in the world, right up there with Mbappe for best young striker. I'd say probably Haaland's a better young striker, whereas Mbappe, in my opinion, is a better forward. I feel like Mbappe is more of a forward than striker.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, at the end of the day, for 60 million euros, so someone who has a market value of 150 million euros, it's an absolute bargain.
That's a buy.
Yeah, that's a bargain signing. And there's not too much to got to say about Haaland, let's be honest, because everyone knows if you watch any soccer, we know how good he is. But talking about Haaland, we're going to move on to a guy that Borussia Dortmund are bringing in to replace him. Another guy going to Dortmund from Salzburg. And I think that's kind of obvious where we're going based on the Salzburg connection. It is Karim Adeyemi. 30 million euros is the transfer fee. 35 million is the market value for Adeyemi. Replace him for Haaland. It makes sense. A little bit different style-wise, but it's a great signing.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely a different player than Haaland. There's not many people of that size who can move like he does. But Adeyemi is nothing to look away from. He's phenomenal. He was torching in Salzburg. He was just torching the league. You know, it always felt like even in the European competitions, I was looking at box scores. I was like, who the heck is this guy who just scored a brace? And when I look at Adeyemi play, he could play anywhere across the front three. He kind of reminds me of a fusion between Aubameyang and Sancho, who also played for Dortmund.
Except he's left-footed.
Yeah, he's left-footed. That's which I think is a bonus for him, if anything. But he does remind me of that guy who is a little bit of a speedster, also a little bit of a technician on the wing. Like, he can dribble, he can shoot. Yeah, I think he just can play anywhere across the front three.
Yeah, now the question is, where is he going to end up at Dortmund? Dortmund does have Daniel Malen already. They did bring in Sebastian Haller from Ajax. So will Adeyemi get his chances at striker or right wing or maybe even left wing? That's still to be seen. But he should get a decent amount of game time at Dortmund. And if Dortmund have any injuries up front, his versatility is going to be huge for them. And I think versatility is what really makes this a great signing as well. It's not just that he's a striker. It's that he can play anywhere on that front three and be successful.
Yeah, that was a huge recipe for Dortmund as a whole, is just, hey, you're good, you're athletic, we can use you somewhere. So I think he's a perfect fit down there.
Yeah, it just makes sense. And Dortmund, like we said with Haaland, a great place for youth talent, just like Salzburg is. And yeah, it's funny though because you're so used to seeing these Salzburg guys go to Leipzig, and now Dortmund's starting to say, we want some of those guys too. And there have been obviously other teams started to pick up on the Salzburg thing. We'll get to another guy who went through the Salzburg system in a little bit. But next up is, I think, one of probably the bargain signing of the summer transfer window. Will he stay at the club that signed him though? That's the interesting one, and that you might sound confused at that, but the next one is Destiny Udogie from Udinese. 4 million euros was the signing fee. 17 million euros is the market value. An absolute bargain bin signing. However, this one has interesting conditions because he was on loan at Udinese from Hellas Verona, and it was, I think, just under €1 million for the loan fee, but there was a 4 million buy option at the end of the loan, and obviously Udinese were going to take it after that stellar year he had there. Now, will he stay at Udinese? That's still decided. I know Brighton are interested. Some other clubs have sniffed around. I know Inter Milan, because they have to replace Perisic, have sniffed around as well. But I think the asking price right now, their opening asking price, I think is £35 million, which might be a little high, but it's negotiations. You got to start high. Some Barnes thoughts on Udogie.
If you haven't heard of this guy, you heard it here first. Okay. This guy, I think, can be really special. He's physical. He's quick. He plays with his brain. He's definitely one of these left backs who in today's game can really go forward and press it forward. I've seen number of, whether it be a highlight tape or just watching him just play the game naturally. He just goes forward. He can send in a good cross. He can out dribble these guys. When I watch him, I kind of get reminded of Marcelo Light, hey, is he super technical with the ball? Not really, but is he good enough on the ball? Yeah. Is he physical? Yeah, definitely. Is he as physical as Marcelo? Not necessarily, but yeah, Marcelo Light is for Udogie right now, and I think he'll become a household name within the next 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, and what's crazy about Udogie is he's still just 19 years old. He is on the Golden Boy list, the top 100 of the Golden Boy list. One of the best left back options on there, along with Nuno Mendes, who obviously PSG just signed him after his loan spell there. He didn't make this list because we only did one loan guy who was bought. But yeah, there's been a bunch of this summer transfer window, a lot of loan deals becoming permanent, and a lot of them at very good prices for the buying club. So that's very interesting to see when you start looking at all the different transfers. But yeah, Udogie wants to play for the Italian national team. Italy are going to need a left back. But to get on that, will he be able to get to the national team? Will he be able to stay at Udinese? That's the big question. How long will he stay at Udinese? But there's one thing for sure: Udinese will make a massive profit off of this signing when he gets sold. But yeah, next up, we're gonna go back to the Bundesliga here, and we're gonna go back to Borussia Dortmund. Funny enough, Dortmund feature here 3 times, twice with players that they buy, and this one's coming from Freiburg. It is Nico Schlotterbeck. 20 million euros is the transfer fee, a 33 million euro market value. Great signing. Play center back. Could probably slide into the 6, as well as maybe even a left back if needed in a back 4. Definitely not a left back in the back 5. It's not a wing back, but definitely could fill in a left back if needed. Definitely could fill in the 6 if needed. And it's a great sign for Dortmund.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he is the left back version of Thomas Meunier, who they already have. I think their center backs by trade, but can drop out wide into the fullback positions. Like you touched upon, I think he could relearn or learn how to play the 6 properly, almost like what Bayern did with Kimmich. He's got a great work rate. I shouldn't even say good. He's got a great work rate. He can navigate the midfield well enough. He's brilliant. He's pretty smart. But I think the biggest thing for him is I notice his athleticism, whether it be going up for a header or running out to make that early tackle in the open field. And I feel like that's a great pairing for any of the other guys he could get paired with, like Sule or Hummels or Akanji, who are a little bit, lackluster in pace nowadays. So I think if they can help him and navigate him around, I think he'll just be a great pair for any one of those guys.
Yeah, and I think all these Bundesliga teams are getting their reinforcements in because Bayern's got to fall eventually. And I think a lot of these teams are seeing that this might be the year where we might be able to make a run. And like Dortmund, they bring in Sule from Bayern on a free deal. You bring in Schlotterbeck, who can kind of fill in. But I feel like the soccer's starting to go towards this kind of hybrid between guys who can play in a center back spot or a fullback spot. Some of the biggest names that have been rumored, just in general on transfer market, whether it's just rumors or speculation, rumors, or just more intense actual interest. Jurrien Timber from Ajax, also Alessandro Martinez at Leipzig. You have Josko Vardiol, and a bunch of other guys. Obviously, Leipzig have a bunch of those guys who can kind of play in a wing back / fullback / center back. Mukiele is kind of the first guy that comes to mind in that sense.
Yeah, Klosterman as well.
Klosterman, yep. Even Mohamed Simikin can do it.
Yep.
Dortmund is starting to bring in some of those guys who can do it. I feel like that's kind of the way it's going now. You don't necessarily need to have 2, 3, 4 center backs on your team that are 6'3" and big and strong. You don't necessarily need that anymore. Maybe you'll need 1 or 2 guys. And I think we're seeing this with a lot of sports, not just soccer. Speed is becoming more and more key. Athleticism all around the field, the pitch, the court, the whatever surface you're playing on. It's speed. You see it, in all these different sports. Speed is key. And speed or quickness, depending on where you're playing, what position it is. But center back, being quick is important, because if you have a very slow back line and you're going up against a pacey striker and he gets behind you, you're not going to catch up to him. So
no.
And the Bundesliga is a league that you do see a lot of teams that can play a back 3, can play a back 4, and can play a back 5, depending on the system they do want to run. And having a versatility like Schlotterbeck does give you those options. But yeah, I think, at the end of the day, great signing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, like being able to, I noticed with Dortmund this past year, really, where they shift between that back 3, 4, or 5, and he'll just slide right into that mix. It won't really matter if anyone's out of form or gets hurt. He's your guy. Yeah,
because you have like your typical back 5 that Leipzig run. Then you kind of have your back that you see Leipzig run a lot, actually. Then you have your back 4, your normal, most teams run back 4s. Then you kind of have your back 3 that's sort of a back 5, but not really. Like I use Inter Milan as a great example of that. Yes, they have wing backs, and it's kind of a back 5, but I feel like they're more of a back 3 with kind of wide midfielders almost, because even when they had like a Hakimi, I understand Hakimi plays right back for PSG now, but he wasn't really a fullback. He was more advanced than a wing back. So
yeah, he was
kind of the back 3.
He was just a right midfielder who could play okay defense.
Well, it worked because linking up with Lautaro Martinez and Lukaku, who's now back at Inter. That was huge. And I do want to bring up Lukaku though, just because that might be, if he goes back to Inter and has a great season. Inter, I mean, talk about business. Sell him for like 100 million. Bring him back literally the next after one season being away for 7 million.
Yeah,
and a loan fee, and if he plays great, and they also, and it's gonna be amazing for them. But last up, we've been talking about the Bundesliga, talking about how teams trying to catch Bayern. That's evidenced by teams extending contracts but putting release clauses after the season, like Christopher Nkunku, who's one of my favorite players in the world at Leipzig. But we're going to talk about Bayern, a team that's won the Bundesliga 10 years in a row now. Will they be toppled? Will they not? But they have brought in some key reinforcements. This one is kind of a cheat code because we said 5. We're saying 5 players, but this is 2 in the last spot because they're very similar in how they got to Bayern. Sadio Mane and Ryan Gravenberch. We'll start with Sadio Mane, my favorite player, Liverpool player. I have a poster of him up there on the back. Sad he's leaving Liverpool, but just kind of saw it coming realistically. And it's a great signing for Bayern, obviously. It's a 32 million euro transfer fee. Obviously, there's add-ons as well. But market value of 70 million. It is a great deal for Bayern. For Liverpool, though, it's also a great deal because you don't lose him for nothing. You're pretty much going to you're not losing your investment that you initially made on him if all the add-ons get added on. So they're great for both teams, but especially Bayern, who Lewandowski, does he want to stay? How much is he going to even be willing to play? I know we don't really see like holdouts in soccer, but he wants to leave. Are Bayern going to be willing to potentially deal with that kind of locker room kind of, but at the end of the day, I think you can agree with this. Mane, great player, very consistent last year. played at center forward a lot at the end of the year. Started the year obviously on the left wing for Liverpool. I can play across the whole front three. Very versatile. And with Bayern having injury concerns, especially with a guy like a Kingsley Coman, having a guy and Serge Gnabry, having a guy like Mane there super important for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you really just hit everything on the head. I don't really even think there's much for me to say, but yeah, no, I think he adds a ton of depth. If Louis decides not to play, boom, you got yourself a center forward. Oh, Gnabry, Coman, Sane, they go. Those guys go down. Boom, throw them in there. You're not losing anything. If anything, it's almost like a little mini upgrade too. So
yeah, it's great signing for them. And then the last guy we kind of shoehorned into this is he also had 1 year left on his contract, and his team didn't want to lose him for anything. 20 years old, Ryan Gravenberch going from Ajax to Bayern Munich for just 18.5 million euros, a 35 million euro market value. Great midfielder for Ajax. Ajax have obviously produced a ridiculous amount of midfielders recently with De Jong, with Van de Beek, and a bunch of others, obviously. And they've just been producing great talent. Ajax is another one of those great youth player teams where you get a lot of development out of their players. And Gravenberch, he's going to fit Bayern perfectly, I think, because he can they need someone like Gravenberch at the end of the day. And their midfield's getting a little bit older. They could really use young influence. And we've seen Bayern start to get older under Julian Nagelsmann, going for guys like Dale Upamecano, bringing them over from Leipzig, and a bunch of other guys as well. They're getting younger. Obviously, the Mane signing is not a younger signing, but in the sense of they're making long-term investments now as well as the short-term. And Gravenberch is one of those that is both.
Yeah, Gravenberch is just a phenomenal player. I literally have no words to say negative about him. He only ever positive things. He's a solid 8 player. Great passing, great above average defending. He's got great ball control. He's got a great shot. Like, what can't this guy do in the midfield? And I'm actually wondering if I'm not saying he's going to be Paul Pogba, but I really think that his talent level is really good, and he's good at a lot of different things. And I'm wondering if it turns into one of those, like, why isn't he attacking more? Why isn't he defending more? Why isn't he pulling the strings more? And I really think that Nagelsmann's a good manager. I think he's going to help get him in the right direction, use him properly. And I think he'll have a really stellar career, winning a ton of Bundesliga championships with Bayern.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of growing pains last year with Nagelsmann heading to Bayern, but it seems like they got them all worked out at the end of the year. Maybe there's a couple growing pains for Gravenberch, but he'll figure it out. He's a very talented young player. Out of the 6 players on here, 3 of them are up for the Golden Boy in the top one in that 100 initial 100 player rankings of the Golden Boy. Gravenberch, Udogie, and Adeyemi are in it. Haaland is too old for the Golden Boy. Only reason he is not in it, too old by 2 years. But 3 Golden Boy nominees. And we got 3 others who are proven very good players. And I think that's kind of the only one who really is older is Sadio Mane. Schlotterbeck and Haaland are both 22. Adeyemi, Gravenberch are both 20. Udogie's 19. Sadio's the only one who's older, but it's not like he's old because, guess what? He's 30 years old. Not old, but I think we're starting to see these younger players kind of we've seen it in American sports, player power and moving out of teams, or they want to move to a different team or hitting free agency. Whereas now you're seeing these younger players in soccer saying, no, I'm willing to run down my contract so I can go move to another club that I really want to go to and make that next step in my career. And it's forcing these teams to sell them for less when they have only a year left on their deal. And teams that are buying these young players that are a step up for these young players are getting very good prices for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just playing the field, playing the market, I think is a huge game for, both the club and the player. And I think just finding that middle ground, and especially, you touched upon it, just finding these little oh, hey, I can get this guy for a little cheaper because he's trying to move. They don't want to make nothing on him. So we can kind of force the issue and get a deal done. And I think it works out for both the buyer and the seller, a little less for the seller, but hey, you're not losing them for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to give out a shout out to Marcos Antonio going to Lazio, one of my favorite long Liverpool player. Do have his Shakhtar Donetsk jersey up on the wall. Shakhtar Donetsk in the Ukrainian league. Obviously, they didn't get to play the second half of their season, but he's shown some promise. Brazilian central midfielder, can play the 6 or the 8. I really like him a lot. Hope he has success at Lazio. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up, Barnes?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I feel like if you want to have us cover some other players, so throw a comment down below. We love to cover it. I love the Premier League. I love Serie A, Bundesliga, you name it. I watch it. I love soccer. I know I'm wearing a baseball t-shirt right now, but the Yankees weren't playing today. We cover baseball as well. Any questions, feel free to drop them in below. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram. Go check out our website at bleacherbrawls.com. And yeah, I'd love to chat with you guys.
Yep, all that good stuff will be in the description. Also, where I found out all the transfer details and market values, transfermarket.com. I'll leave that in the description as well. And all our links, all the crews, Twitters, and all of Bleacher Brawls links will be down there. Yep, leave comments, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when we post. We have weekly videos on non-baseball, and then the other 4 videos a week are baseball topics. We did a Red Sox roster tier list yesterday. Then we had going up tomorrow, we will have a prospect pipeline on Orioles top prospect Grayson Rodriguez. Thursday, another Orioles video covering the Orioles' June success. Friday, a Yankees roster tier list. I know Barnes, as a Yankees fan, is excited for that one. Then we'll have another Red Sox video coming up the next Monday. That's going to wrap it up for Barnes. I'm Derek. Thanks for tuning into Bleacher Brawls, and we'll see you next time.